The next thing I'd like to talk about is how do we find and import data. So let's go over here and click on Site Files. And when we click on Site Files, we'll see our site file directories list. We can add directories to this by simply clicking the New button, and then by clicking the Browse button and selecting the new directory that we'd like to add. Once we do that, we click off of that directory for a second and come back to it, and we'll find those data directories. We can then look in here and see information about those specific sites. Okay. Let's go in here. Let's click on this Snyder Hill Road and click the Open button. When the file is open, we now have the options to take a look at a quick graph. And the quick graph will display all the data in a default graph template. I'll go ahead and close that to show you some other things in here. There's a quick report, which quickly shows us the data in tabular format. We can come down here to a quick scatter plot. And we can also add this site to the database. We'll save that for a little bit. The other tabs along here will now show us some analysis tools. We can look at the event log, the program settings. We can look at the sample history. And we can look at the current status. In other words, the status of the instrument when it was downloaded. And again, you see the print and save buttons are here again. Under graphs and reports, we can choose to graph or create reports from templates that we have saved in our template directories. And we'll talk more about that in just a little bit. Now, the real power in Flo-Center is the database. So let's look at ways to import data into the database. Probably the first and simplest way to do it is to use the Data Import Wizard, which you find here. If we click on that button, it will walk us through the steps to populate our data in the database. I'll click Next. I now have the option to import Insight binary files or CSV file format files. I have options in here on what to do with the data based upon certain criterion. When we're importing site files into the database, we look for 3 different identifiers. We look for the serial number, which is the extension of the site file. We look for the site ID and the site description. And then we look to see if there are matches already in the database. If there are matches, then we can set this up to make assumptions that that's the same site and go ahead and merge those data files together. We can also, if we have partial matches, we have options to make changes to that. And if we have no matches, in other words, it does not match any of those 3 criterion, doesn't match the serial number, the site ID, or the site description, then we have options on what to do for those situations as well. The defaults are pretty good and probably what you use for most situations. Another tool that we have in this screen is the Browse button, which allows us to browse for site files. And we can look and see, oh, there's a whole bunch of site files in this directory here, but we can browse anywhere on our computer or on network drives. Okay. And I can import site files one at a time or multiples at a time. Another neat feature here is the scan button, which will scan through a directory or a whole drive or a network drive and find all the insight files in that directory. And then we can simply choose to import all these files or some of these files. Let's go ahead and import this file and this file. And we could just do that by holding down the control button and selecting the two files. If we add these to the import file list, they show up in this tab down here, the import list, and it shows us the file name and what database site these would go to. And we see, if we highlight those sites, we also see import file details, which tells us all the information about that site that we might want to see. So if we're happy with our selections here, we can go ahead and hit Finish, and it will import those sites into our database. Okay, that file was imported successfully. Click OK, and now those site files have been imported into the database. Another option that we have is to import vision databases into our Flo-Center database. If I come over here to the toolbar on the right hand side and click Vision Database, I can now browse and find the database that I would like to import. If I select it and open it, it will now populate all the sites that are in the Vision database will now appear in this list on the bottom. And then I'll be given the option to choose which sites I would like to import into the database. I can select them all if I'd like. Once I do that, I hit the import button and Flo-Center does the work for me. Okay, those files were imported successfully. Let's go ahead and click OK and close this window.